Hey guys, one of the things I love about working in this digital marketing space is that I get a chance to meet some of the best business minds out there. And my next guest on this episode is no different. This guy has been in the industry for over 19 years, and we're gonna sit and chat and talk about influence and attribution. What an amazing topic. So hold on to your seat, guys. You're in for a treat as I introduce you to another great digital marketer.
Hello, and welcome to Marketing Solutions for Local Businesses, the podcast where you will discover all the latest and greatest digital marketing tools, tips, and strategies you will need to implement in order to stay ahead of your competition. If you are not getting the results you are looking for from your digital marketing efforts, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's the host of our show, the local business guy himself, Frank Deming.
Hello, everyone. This is Frank Deming, the local business guy, and welcome to another episode of Marketing Solutions for Local Businesses. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day, everyone. I hope you guys are having a rocking week thus far. Today, I have the privilege of introducing you to another guest that I think that is making huge headways in this marketplace we call local marketing. As you guys know, I'm all about local, but I want to introduce you to a gentleman that, in my opinion, as I said, I don't think there's ever such a thing as competition. I think we all need to help each other grow because the local community needs guys like us. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to my guest. His name is Jeramiah Martin. Hi, Jeremiah. Hi, Jeremiah. How's it going?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to chatting.
Welcome to the show. So in the pre-intro, I have already introduced you, my good friend. But in your own words, who is Jeramiah Martin? Who are you and what do you do?
So I'm the director of marketing for and sales for a company called Local IQ. Local IQ has offices in 260 markets across the country. We're fortunate in the Northeast to be very, heavily rooted here. We've got offices and several offices in New Jersey and New York and Connecticut. So heavily rooted in the Northeast. Our job and what I take really personally as my role within what I would consider our work is doing exactly what you do, Frank, which is helping local businesses navigate the increasingly, I would rather use positive words, the increasingly interesting world of digital marketing, where things are always changing and new opportunities are always presenting themselves. And we get in the middle of that with with the businesses that we serve and with the many agencies that we partner with in order to help solve these complex problems that turn into really, profitable solutions. And so, I take that responsibility personally. I think that when we can help local business, we're really helping local communities thrive. And
Right.
I think it's important work that we do, and lately increasingly exciting work.
Awesome. And out of curiosity, what is your target market? Who do you serve mostly? Because local is a kind of broad term. Who do you serve mostly?
It's a good question. So my company, we have everything. We work from businesses that have tens of millions of dollars a year that they spend with us, and then we work with businesses that spend tens of thousands of dollars a year with us. So we kind of run the gamut. But I would say that our sweet spot tends to be that mid-sized local business that kind of maintains control over their local marketing and their marketing effort, and has a good sense of who their local audience is that they're trying to capture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And very kind of in the specifically rooted in the geographies that they know that they can control and that they're trying to control well. So when you start to get more broad than that, and you're talking about businesses that are, covering the entire country.
Yeah, no, I got you.
And that are trying to strategically figure out a way to drive revenue across that kind of massive geographic footprint. I think you start moving away from our sweet spot a little bit. So really local businesses that have a concrete understanding of a local geography that they're trying to own, I guess I would say, is where we try to lean in the most heavily.
Awesome. Quick question for you. So most of my audience, as you may or not may know or may not know, are attorneys in not in just in this local area, because I also serve people outside. How can an attorney gain like some sort of influence in their community and become the go-to firm for whatever service they offer? What's the advice you can give them?
It's gonna end up being similar advice that I would give to most businesses. Although I've had the pleasure and privilege of working with many attorneys over the years, and will absolutely acknowledge the unique opportunities within marketing for attorneys and some of the unique challenges within marketing for attorneys. But one of the things that I found most interesting over the last year or so, and maybe the pandemic kind of helped drive some of this a little bit, but I feel like there was whispers of a shift in the way we have an opportunity to influence consumers. I kind of feel like there's been whispers of this shift that have been happening for a few years. But if we rewind the clock and you go back to that point where Google really became everything as it relates to lead generation, businesses that had historically kind of rooted themselves in yellow page advertising in order to lead volume. And as that shift happened and everything moved over to other forms of performance marketing that were far more digital in nature, Google, Yahoo, Bing, et cetera, there was a shift in perspective, I think, that all of a sudden allowed for a very measurable form of marketing and attribution that allowed us to say, okay, this is exactly how much I paid for an impression. This is exactly how much I paid for a click. And this is exactly how much I paid for, the acquisition of a customer. And when that became possible, right? Because it was never really fully possible before, right? When that became possible, suddenly really all industries started moving their marketing budgets over to that place, right? And really kind of directing their efforts as much as they could to a place where it was all super, super, super measurable and results. When that happened, I think that there was a natural migration away from old idea of building a brand, establishing your value within the community through storytelling, and becoming more actively involved in the consumer experience earlier in the decision-making process, because what we really all we redirected all of our efforts to communicating with consumers at the moment that they needed us.
Yeah.
You could even argue we started communicating with consumers increasingly only at the moment that they needed us. And in doing that, I think that over the last 10, 15 years even, what we've seen is a huge swath of the local business community that has stopped establishing their value, brand building, which I think has kind of forced them to only compete based on certain factors that consumers consider when they're making a decision. Things like price, right? If we don't know who you are, and all that you do from a marketing point of view is play at the bottom of the decision-making process, and you really only market to consumers who need you today, and they're not familiar with who you are or what value you represent, then you probably are going to need to be one of the lowest price point options, right?
Exactly.
You have to have some other thing going for you. So one of the things that I've really appreciated and what I see happening right now is that there's definitely a move towards businesses beginning to start focusing on establishing their value again. We're still focused on performance. You still have to own that. And the more competitive you can be, and technology that you can use, and smart people you can partner with to do that really well. You want to own that game, but I really like to see that it feels like we're starting to head back to that point where building value is beginning to matter again.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. You said a mouthful there and made me realize how much I miss these types of conversations when we start talking about how much an impressions cost to you versus a click versus a conversion. I love that stuff. I get geeked out. I got goosebumps when you started talking about that. So that's all, and it's true. It's everything you said. I really agree with. Now, let me ask you this, because this is something that I know you guys do. We don't do it at all. I mean, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but I know you guys do this a lot. Is email marketing. How important is email marketing now that things are kind of shifting to a more pure online focus?
Yeah, it's a good question, because, there for years now, email has been dead.
Yeah.
Like officially.
Exactly.
It was officially announced that email was dead 10 years ago, and it has been officially announced as being dead, I think, every year from that time. And of course, it's not. It's not really at all. No, right. If you look at the data, and a lot of people are surprised to find this, that email, I think, still it was, as of 2020. I don't know that anybody has released any data for 2021 yet, but as recently as 2020 and about halfway through 2021 as well, email was still the highest ROI producing form of digital marketing that you can engage in.
Yeah.
Now, even search engine marketing, SEO, paid search efforts, and the question, of course, is how is that possible? With search, somebody is actively seeking out a service that you provide and then choosing to do business with you. You would think that that's got to be the highest performing from a cost per lead perspective, your highest performing form of digital marketing. But I think the reason that email continues to perform so well is email is really ultimately rooted in the value of your own data. And so as you look, as with all of the things that are happening right now with privacy, for example, you have the iOS is happening, and Facebook has to change the way they're doing things for good reason. Google has announced they're changing the way that they're doing things. A lot of talk about the post-cookie and post-world that we're going to live in, and that we're already largely living in. With that all being true, the value of first-party data, that data that a business owns, that they have built up on their own, you could call it earned, the value of that data, of which a large part of that value is a business's email list, becomes terribly valuable, because you alone have access to that audience. And you don't need technology. You don't need Facebook's targeting algorithm to be able to access that audience. You don't need pixels that may or may not be available anymore to access that audience. Apple can change their iOS all they want and put all kinds of new rules in place. It doesn't make a difference, because you alone own that database. You own that email list. And so, as we go into next year, I think that that's only going to become more pronounced how valuable that is. And so as businesses, whether you're talking about attorneys or you're talking about any industry, as businesses establish their game plan for next year, and they're trying to think to themselves what really matters, I think increasingly the value of having a plan in place to develop your email lists and to develop the data that you have, asking your customers to provide you with insights about themselves so that you can tailor what you do for them more effectively. The more that we build out our own internal database of knowledge about our current customers, and email is a big piece of it, the more effectively we're going to be able to market. So email is not dead, and I think that it's going to even become more pronounced as an opportunity going into next year.
Yeah, I get that question a lot, and that's not the reason why I stopped offering it as an offering to my clients. It's just, for me, it was a bandwidth issue. So I said, I have to define my business as a lead generation business, and that's it. All the other stuff has to come from somewhere else. But yeah, so that's interesting. I get that a lot. And email's dead anyway. I'm like, it's not really dead. I'm just not offering it anymore.
No, and honestly, I hear you. Is it the traditional idea of what a lead generation tool is, right? Like, lead generation is largely you identify a budget that you can direct towards driving lead volume, and then you try to do that in the most cost-effective and efficient way, right? You're looking at not just how much does it cost to acquire a new lead, but you're doing things to try to understand lead quality and things like that. That all ends up becoming really important. And so I don't know that I would call, email marketing, I wouldn't say that it kind of fits in that traditional bucket. And as such, I would kind of consider that type of email marketing experience where you're focused on building out a database and then establishing a communication cadence with your email list. I would consider that more of something that really businesses ought to manage in-house more than anything. I don't know how much of that should be handled by an agency who is focused on lead generation, because I actually think that part of it, that communication cadence, I think that lives more in what I was talking about before, in the establishing value part, where you're trying to differentiate what makes you different as an attorney or as a cake maker or as whatever it is that you do. Like that's your opportunity to make a constant point of contact with your consumer group, knowing that they're also in touch with, they all have friends and family that they can end up referring you to. That's your opportunity to maintain a constant point of contact with those folks to establish your value. So I don't know that belongs with an agency that focuses on lead generation anyway.
That's an interesting twist. I like you. I like that. I don't think I've ever heard of an agency person say something like that, and I kind of and probably subconsciously that was the reason why I gave it up. Because your voice is your voice, and when you gotta find as an attorney, as a firm, or as a dentist or chiropractor, whatever you are, you have to have someone in your staff that is responsible for that kind of communication once a lead comes in. And I agree with that. That's
another example of that, like right now, there's when you look at like social media marketing, and I'm not talking about ads, but just businesses establishing a presence on social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is. There were all these posts that you were able to do, and a lot of companies hired third parties to deliver posts and kind of create a content matrix where the posts go out on a regular basis and you're maintaining a point of contact with your advertisers. With your consumers. Now, what we're seeing on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube is, rather than these posts getting any real visibility, what's getting the most visibility that business owners are doing on social media are these 15 and 30-second videos, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram Reels, or you have YouTube Shorts.
TikTok.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, they're 15-second videos, and they're not like beautifully produced videos, right? These are literally businesses that they might be holding the phone in front of their own face and just or somebody else is holding the phone and they're recording a video, but they're literally just talking to their audience. They're communicating what they do. They're trying to share insights about, if you're going to decide on, doing a kitchen remodel, this is the stuff you should be thinking about, right? And they're just talking to the camera. And it's another example of the kind of thing that becomes that much more authentic when it's your voice, the way you described it, Frank, with email. When it's your voice, it becomes more authentic when you're the one doing it. So it's another example of the kind of thing. It's probably not the kind of thing that you hire a third party to do for you. This is an internal in-house thing that is, I think, incredibly valuable to build your strategy around. It's definitely something that you want to put time and energy into, but it's probably not something that eats up marketing budget. It's more of something that eats up time. Right.
So let me ask you this. So in 2022, what do you think what are the three core things that local businesses ought to be thinking about to make this year a rocking year for them?
That's a good question. I think that first, I would say understanding what has shaped your marketing experience up to this point is first and foremost. We could call that attribution. Where your marketing dollars have been spent effectively and where potentially your marketing dollars could be spent more effectively. In the past, there was increasing challenges for local businesses to really wrap their arms around that, but technology now has made it far easier to understand some of those finer points. People like you, the work that you do and what you bring to a local business owner to really understand how my budget is providing an ROI very specifically, and analyzing out some of those data points, whether you're using Google Analytics or some other third party tool, I think understanding where you've performed well and where incremental improvements can be made in order to further dial in a marketing budget, I think that it is incredibly important. And it's becoming easier and easier and easier to do that now. So I would say if you're sitting in a room and you're going to get around a table with your team and you're going to brainstorm, what are some of the key things that I can do for 2022? I would start there, understanding who you can partner with, who on your organization can do this for you, or connect with somebody like you, Frank, or me. Find what they can offer to help you understand what's working well. Once you understand that, and you have a good plan in place to kind of continue to monitor, your leads coming in and have a good plan in place to understand attribution, I think the next couple of things really come down to some of the more kind of hyper local stuff that I see a lot of businesses failing to do. Like, for example, one of the easiest things that any business owner can do is focus on really, 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 really hyper local SEO. And the easiest thing that you can do to focus on hyper local SEO is your Google business profile, or people call it, right? Super easy thing to do. Everybody knows that they can do it for a long time. Some businesses really engage, but most businesses, they have a cursory effort. They claimed their page. They made sure the information was accurate. Maybe every once in a while, if they get a negative review, they respond. But there is actually a lot that you can do. I mean, there's a whole strategy that you can employ with Google My Business that anybody in a local, like any small business, can totally own or partner with somebody to help them own. It's super, super, super hyper local. It helps you completely own the market that you serve, right? And it's incredibly cost effective, right?
Yep.
In terms of, the amount of energy and hard dollars you have to put behind it. And it's an incredibly effective tool. So I think that I find it interesting as we look at ways that we can be more effective. The simple things sometimes like that are available to us are often the things that are overlooked. So I'd say that's a big part of it. And then the last thing I would say is what we started with at the beginning of this conversation, which is, look for ways to reestablish connections with your consumer group earlier in the decision-making process, right? Find ways to if you've been in business for 50 years, find ways to make sure people know that, right? Whatever that additional value is that separates you from all of the other attorneys, or that additional value that separates you from all of the other people that are going to come and install a new roof, right? Whatever that value is, you want to make sure that you're doing the best that you can to let the consumer group that's out there in the community you serve, you want them to know it. Because if they don't know it, and we're really only living in the place where we try to capture them as a lead when they're doing a Google search, then you better be the best priced, right? Otherwise, they're going to hang up the phone and call somebody else and hope that they're a better price than you. So I think that looking at what you can put on your site that really communicates your value and what you can do in active marketing to communicate your value, I think it just ends up reinforcing the value of what you're doing to drive good quality leads as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. It's funny. I have a funny story to tell you about that. I had a client of mine who had a med spa in Denver, Colorado, and she was there for 15 years. Never advertised, never did. Then, all of a sudden she started to need the advertising because nothing was happening. They hired us. They found us through LinkedIn. This was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, because it was prior to COVID. And she said that the first 5-6 people that came by were like, hey, I didn't know you guys were here. I'm like, literally 2 miles down the road. I come to town all the time. I didn't know you guys were here. Because, I've never been there, but she said it was not a very obvious place. It's not, it's in a bad area. I said, well, then you definitely need marketing if it's in a bad area.
Yeah.
In terms of being visible, you know what I mean? And she goes, oh, I didn't know you guys were here.
It's just a reality. And Frank, I can only imagine how many times you've worked with businesses, new relationships that you've established with the business, and you're having that first conversation and you're learning about them, asking them questions, really understanding who they are. And they have these great stories to tell, right? Like so many, wow, like you have a story to tell. Like you're offering a really unique perspective in the market, and like the work that you do is so great, and like this is a really important thing that you can say, and yet people don't know. They're, increasingly challenged to try to get a return on their marketing investment because things just not working. And I run into it all the time myself, and it's
amazing
thing that you can have such really highly valuable businesses within the community that just haven't figured out a way, with the way everything changes. I mentioned it at the head of this conversation. The increasingly exciting, landscape of digital marketing, you just haven't figured out a way to navigate it yet.
Yeah. So before I let you go, I got two more questions. Number one is, what's your take on digital marketing? Do you think it's always going to be needed? Do you think that the AI is going to just make it so super simple that everyone's going to be like, oh, why do I need guys like Jeremiah? Why do I need guys like Frank? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I hope machine learning gets better and better and better and better and better, because I don't see machine learning being any threat to smart local marketers. I think that the better that machine learning gets, the more advantage we have as marketers to not have to focus on the little things that we've had to do for years and years and years that eat up all of our time, right? A good example of this is, and Frank, I know you know this well. There was a time way back when businesses would buy paid search ads that would build out your keyword groups, and you would write your ad copy, and you'd identify your bidding strategy, and then you'd press play on your campaign. And you would do the best you can to measure the kind of look at the metrics throughout the campaign, throughout the month, but there was so little data to, after 3 days, you don't have much data. And after a week, you have a little more, but not necessarily enough to make decisions on. Maybe after a couple of weeks, you've got some data that you're starting to think about things a bit. But then after a month, this is back in the day, you have some data that you can look and you say, okay, all right, I can see some things that we can do differently. So I'm going to modify the campaign a little bit, what we would call optimization. I'm going to do that work, and then I'm going to press play again, and we'll let that happen in month 2, and then we'll measure and we'll tweak and measure and tweak and optimize. And, by the time you get to months 3, 4, 5, 6 down the road, you've managed to figure out a way to get the campaign pretty dialed in. Mm-hmm. Well, now machine learning allows you to do that, kind of go through that process, that A/B testing, trial and error. Machine learning lets all that happen like in days instead of months. And you can say, oh, well, but all that time, that was part of my value as the person who did that. Like, that's what they were paying me for. But I think that what that allows us to do is be far more strategic and proactive about what comes next, right? And that's what really, I think that's what excites me more than anything. I get so jazzed about this whole kit that we're in, because I think it allows us to be more creative and be more proactive as marketers, and bring knowledge of marketing, what you have, Frank, bring all of this, these years and years and years and years and years worth of knowledge that you have. It allows you to focus on being proactive and making businesses even more successful, rather than having to spend so much time in analysis, right? So I think, I think that we're always going to be of value. And I think that the more technology we have that allows us to not have to spend time doing the mundanity of the things that we used to have to do, and just get to focus on the good stuff, I think the better.
Yep, that's true. It's funny because now, because of AI, it's quicker. I can make quicker decisions a lot sooner than later, because it's telling me, oh, this is happening. This is a trend. So you make shifts and all that. Whereas before we had to wait and be actually after the curve to make that change. So, well said.
Perfect way of saying it. Yeah.
So how do people get a hold of you, Jeremiah? If somebody wanted to talk to you about this episode or about anything that Local IQ has to offer, how can we make that happen?
Well, I live in Connecticut. I work in New Jersey now. My office is in New Jersey. I used to have my office in New York, Westchester County. So I'm around physically if you're in the Northeast. Always available and happy to chat. You'll find me on LinkedIn, J. Wolf Martin. pretty active on LinkedIn. I love these conversations, and always look forward to having an opportunity to do that. Or you can shoot me an email, N as in Nancy Martin, jnmartin@localiq.com. Always excited to have conversations about this stuff. It's the thing that motivates me most, and I really appreciate you having me on.
Awesome.
Podcast, Frank. It was a great conversation. Enjoyed it.
I will definitely drop those links in the show notes so people can reach out to you. Is there anything I did not ask you that you think will benefit the audience?
No, I don't think so. I think that that big final question is what to think about for 2022. I think that's the answer is, think about how to make the best use of your data and figure out what you're going to do with it. It's of incredible value and will only become increasingly valuable. So
awesome. Thanks a lot. Thanks for coming. And that was a great ending to a great episode here. Guys, I will be back next week with another great topic of conversation. This has been Frank Deming, the local business guy, and you were just blessed by the great Jeramiah Martin. Take care, everybody. Until next week. Peace out.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Marketing Solutions for Local Businesses, the podcast where you will discover all the latest and greatest digital marketing tools, tips, and strategies you will need to implement in order to stay ahead of your competition. Don't forget, any links that were mentioned during the broadcast will be available to you in the show notes, so be sure to grab them while you have the chance. Incidentally, if you have any topics that you would like for us to discuss on the show, be sure to send an email to the email provided in the show notes, or click the Contact Us link and let us know what topic you would like us to help you with, and we'll be sure to add it to our schedule. If you would like for Frank and his team to look at your digital marketing presence and give you a free evaluation, simply click the Request a Free Consultation link in the show notes to get a hold of them. That being said, until our next episode, make it a successful digital marketing day. Peace out.